On a warm summer morning in June of 1914, a single moment in a quiet European city would trigger one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. A gunshot fired on a crowded street would echo across continents and ignite a war that would involve dozens of nations and change the course of the 20th century. The event would become known as the Assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and it would set into motion the chain of events that led directly to World War I. Subscribe to History as it was lived, where the past is told as it was truly experienced. To understand how this single act of violence could lead to a world war, we must first look at the political tensions that dominated Europe at the beginning of the 20th century. At that time, Europe was a continent filled with powerful empires competing for influence and dominance. Large nations formed alliances with one another, and tensions between countries were constantly growing. Beneath the surface of diplomacy and political negotiations, rivalries, nationalism, and military competition created an atmosphere that was dangerously unstable. One of the most powerful empires in Europe was Austria-Hungary, a vast multinational empire that stretched across Central and Eastern Europe. It was ruled by the aging Emperor Franz Joseph, whose empire included many different ethnic groups, languages, and cultures. Among these groups were millions of Slavic people who increasingly desired independence and self-rule. At the same time, the nearby kingdom of Serbia was growing stronger and more confident. Serbia dreamed of uniting all South Slavic people into one nation. This idea, known as Pan-Slavism, was popular among many Slavic communities living under Austro-Hungarian rule. As a result, the relationship between Austria-Hungary and Serbia became increasingly hostile. In 1908, Austria-Hungary made a decision that would dramatically increase tensions in the region. The empire formally annexed the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, areas that contained large Slavic populations. Many Serbians believed these lands should belong to Serbia rather than Austria-Hungary. The annexation angered Serbian nationalists and fueled resentment throughout the Balkans. Among those who strongly opposed Austrian rule were several secret nationalist groups. One of the most influential organizations was known as Black Hand. This underground group was dedicated to uniting South Slavs and weakening Austrian control over the region. Members of the organization believed that violence and assassination could be justified if they helped achieve independence. It was within this tense political environment that a young Bosnian Serb named Gavrilo Princip became involved in a conspiracy that would change history. Princip was only 19 years old at the time. Born into a poor family in Bosnia, he grew up surrounded by political unrest and nationalist ideas. Like many young people in the region, he believed strongly that Slavic people should be free from foreign rule. Influenced by revolutionary groups and radical political movements, Princip became determined to take action against Austria-Hungary. In 1914, an opportunity presented itself that seemed almost unbelievable. The heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, announced that he would visit the city of Sarajevo on June 28th. Sarajevo was located in Bosnia, a region recently annexed by Austria-Hungary and filled with nationalist tensions. For Serbian nationalists, the visit was seen as a symbol of imperial domination. To them, the Archduke's presence in Sarajevo represented the authority of a foreign empire ruling over Slavic people. Some conspirators believed that assassinating the Archduke would send a powerful message and inspire rebellion against Austrian rule. Members of the Black Hand began organizing a plot. Several young conspirators were recruited and secretly transported across the border into Bosnia. Among them were Gavrilo Princip and several other students who shared his nationalist beliefs. The group was supplied with pistols, grenades, and cyanide pills, which they were instructed to use to avoid capture if the mission succeeded. The plan was simple, but extremely dangerous. The conspirators would position themselves along the route that the Archduke's motorcade would follow through Sarajevo. If one assassin failed, another would have the opportunity to strike. On the morning of June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie arrived in Sarajevo by train. The Archduke was visiting the city to observe military exercises and attend official events. Despite warnings of potential danger, the visit proceeded as planned. the Archduke and his wife entered an open-top car and began driving through the streets of Sarajevo. Crowds gathered along the sidewalks to watch the procession. Among the spectators were the young conspirators waiting for their chance. The first assassin stood ready with a bomb hidden in his coat. As the Archduke's car approached, he threw the explosive toward the vehicle. However, the bomb bounced off the car and exploded under a following vehicle instead. Several people were injured, but the Archduke and his wife escaped unharmed. The assassin swallowed his cyanide pill and jumped into a nearby river, hoping to avoid capture. But the poison failed to work, and the river was shallow. He was quickly arrested by police. Despite this attack, the Archduke decided to continue with his schedule. After attending a reception at City Hall, he insisted on visiting the hospital to see those injured in the bombing. Meanwhile, the remaining conspirators believed their mission had failed. Gavrilo Princip wandered through the streets, frustrated and uncertain about what to do next. Then, something extraordinary happened. As the Archduke's motorcade left City Hall, the driver took a wrong turn onto a street where Princip happened to be standing. When the driver realized the mistake, the car stopped and began reversing. By an incredible twist of fate, the Archduke's car had stopped directly in front of Gavrilo Princip. Seeing his chance, Princip stepped forward and fired 2 shots from his pistol. One bullet struck Archduke Franz Ferdinand in the neck. The other hit his wife Sophie in the abdomen. Within minutes, both were dead. Princip attempted to take his own life using cyanide, but failed. He was quickly captured by police and arrested by the authorities. News of the assassination spread rapidly across Europe. At first, many people believed the crisis could be resolved through diplomacy, but the political situation in Europe was already dangerously fragile. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for supporting the assassins. Although the Serbian government denied direct involvement, Austria-Hungary was determined to punish Serbia for the attack. With the support of its ally Germany, Austria-Hungary issued a harsh ultimatum to Serbia. The demands included allowing Austrian officials to investigate inside Serbia. Serbia agreed to most of the demands, but rejected those that threatened its sovereignty. In response, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. Because of the system of alliances that connected many European nations, the conflict quickly expanded. Russia mobilized its army to support Serbia. Germany then declared war on Russia and its ally France. When German forces invaded Belgium in order to attack France, the United Kingdom declared war on Germany. Within weeks, the entire continent was engulfed in war. What had begun as a regional dispute following the assassination in Sarajevo had escalated into a global conflict involving dozens of nations. World War I would last 4 devastating years. Millions of soldiers and civilians would lose their lives, and entire regions would be destroyed by trench warfare, artillery bombardments, and new weapons such as poison gas. By the time the war ended in 1918, the political map of Europe had changed dramatically. Empires collapsed, new nations emerged, and the world was forever altered. Historians often point out that the assassination itself did not cause the war alone. The tensions, rivalries, and alliances already present in Europe meant that the continent was like a powder keg waiting for a spark. But the shots fired by Gavrilo Princip in Sarajevo were that spark. A single moment, a wrong turn on a city street, and 2 gunshots were enough to set the world on a path toward one of the most destructive conflicts in history. Today, the story of the assassination remains one of the most dramatic turning points in modern history. It reminds us how fragile peace can be and how a single act can trigger consequences far beyond what anyone could imagine. The streets of Sarajevo are quiet today, but the echoes of that day in 1914 still resonate through history. The assassins who believed they were fighting for freedom unknowingly ignited a war that would reshape the world forever. This was history as it was lived. Subscribe for more stories that shaped our world.